Notre Dame had its sixth practice of fall camp, and blueandgold.com was inside the Irish Athletics Center to view the full practice. We have plenty of footage from the practice to talk about, as well as analysis from our blueandgold.com staff. Before we dive in the video, just want to remind you guys, if you like what you see in this, hit the thumbs up to help support our Blue and Gold YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't yet, and make sure to go to blueandgold.com for all of the written coverage of today's practice. And let's get rolling with this video, talking to blueandgold.com's Tyler Horka and Todd Burlage covering Notre Dame's practice today. We got to start with the quarterbacks. Brian Kelly did not name a starter, but Tyler, I know you guys got to see the whole practice today, especially some scrimmage stuff, which you guys weren't able to video per Notre Dame's rules. But takeaways from seeing a full practice today with those quarterbacks.
Yeah, so the scrimmage portion didn't start until the last half hour, maybe even less, maybe 20 minutes of practice. Before that, Jack Coan looked like the clear number one, working with Jarrett Patterson at center and snaps, going through all those individual drills as the number one guy. Then that scrimmage portion started, and Jack Coan runs out there first, leads the first team offense out there for a series. I think maybe they might have gotten one first down, but that was it. It was a total of about 5 plays. Jack Coan came off the field with the rest of the starters. Jarrett Patterson came off. Kevin Austin, all those guys you would assume would be starters came off, took their helmets off, and then they watched Tyler Buchner and Drew Pyne kind of go at it. It seemed to me, I don't know if it felt the same way to you, Todd, that the last 20 minutes or so of practice felt like a battle for that number 2 quarterback spot between Tyler Buchner and Drew Pyne.
Yeah, Brian Kelly didn't, as you mentioned, Mike, didn't come out and name his starter like we were expecting him to do today. But certainly, and I think Tyler has the correct read here. I think in that Jack Coan came off the field after one series, and then it was back and forth between Pyne and Buchner. I think Tyler's right. I think the Irish coaches want to see what they have behind Coan.
And, Tyler Buchner didn't do a whole lot to impress you with his arm, but it was really a run-heavy touchdown drive. He actually led a touchdown drive. I think it was the only one of the scrimmage portion. Logan Diggs, who we want to talk about in a minute as well, punched in the touchdown, the freshman running back. So not a whole lot of completions on that drive, but sustained first downs, and Tyler Buchner led the Fighting Irish down the field and scored a touchdown. That's something that Drew Pyne didn't do today. My main takeaway from today was, all right, we've been talking about who's going to be the starter for Notre Dame, who's going to be that second stringer, and I think it might be a little closer between Drew Pyne and Tyler Buchner than we thought.
Yeah, when we talked last time on one of these, we just thought it was clear, Coan, Pyne, and then everybody else down the line. I come away from that scrimmage today not thinking that. And Brian Kelly actually raved about Tyler Buchner in the press conference after practice, talked about how his versatility, how, as Tyler said, he can run, he can throw. And just for your information, that touchdown drive that Buchner led was 14 plays.
Wow. Yeah, it was a long drive, and like I said, a lot of running on that drive. Audric Estime, Logan Diggs, I know those are the 4th and 5th running backs on this depth chart for Notre Dame behind Kyron Williams, Chris Tyree, Sebo Flemister. You're probably not going to see a whole lot of those guys once the season starts, but in practices, they look pretty good today. Audric Estime looks very much the part. I come from an SEC background and covering SEC football. He looks like an SEC running back to me. He's huge. Logan Diggs, a little smaller, but very shifty, makes the right cuts. And like I said, when it came down to, I think it was a 4th down play when he punched in that touchdown, 4th and short, Logan Diggs got into the end zone. Those guys looked really good.
Oh, certainly interesting stuff about Buchner there. Let's move into some of the guys that the quarterbacks were throwing the ball to. We'll start with you, Tyler. I know you felt pretty confident in what you saw in some of those guys.
Yeah, so I think I might have been standing somewhere I shouldn't have been for like 2 minutes of practice. Sorry to Notre Dame if that was the case. I ultimately made it to where Todd and everyone else was sitting. But while I was behind one of the end zones, and it was no, it wasn't routes on air. It was one-on-ones. Braden Lenzy was matching up with a bunch of different defensive backs, and it seemed like he was just making play after play, the senior wide receiver for Notre Dame. Even in the press conference, Brian Kelly said that he's really embodied that transformational aspect that these wide receivers have made over the offseason and into camp. Kelly said that this is the best shape he's ever been in. He's making catches that he hasn't made in his Notre Dame career. There was one specific example today. I can't remember who was playing DB.
Clarence Lewis.
It was Clarence Lewis where, it was a play. It was a jump ball. It was kind of up for grabs down the left sideline. And the ball kind of got batted into the air, and Lindsey just reached over the top of Clarence Lewis, caught it, ran it in for a touchdown. So to me, Braden Lindsey really stood out today.
Yeah, that was probably the play of practice. If one particular play stood out to me, it was Kevin Austin. Man, he looks the part. He really does. I know we say that this time of the year every year, but to watch him make plays so effortlessly, he has those huge strides, great separation. He was hard to miss. You couldn't miss him on the practice field today.
And then moving to the defensive side of the ball, who was maybe not active, who was active and stood out, Tyler?
Myron Tagovailoa-Amoso was not at practice today. Brian Kelly said he was back home mourning the loss, unexpected loss of his father. So thoughts and prayers out to him, obviously. Who was on the practice field today? I think Maris Leafau really made a statement. He was playing all different kinds of positions at linebacker. Looked like he could play inside, outside, even rover a little bit.
You have to ran the rover a little bit.
Coming off the edge. And he made a pick six today as well on Drew Pyne. Kind of a play where he just busted right up through the line of scrimmage, got past the offensive line. It looked like it was going to be a batted ball and go straight down, but next thing you know, the ball was in his breadbasket and he's running it the other way for a touchdown. So I think he looked really good. Todd, who somebody else that stood out to you?
I thought Tariq Bracey he just looks the part. Put on a lot of weight. Brian Kelly raved about him as well, saying he's one of those transformational players that he's looking for, along with these senior wide receivers. He wanted to see a Bracey step up and play with more confidence, and he feels like he's getting it at this point. He's one that stood out to me for sure, but Leafau I thought was the player of the game defensively.
One more note on specific defensive players. Justin Adimalola is dealing with a hamstring issue. Kelly says it's not too serious, but they're definitely being cautious about that, and they're kind of holding him out of some reps because of that early in camp.
Yeah, and Blake Fisher, he's in concussion protocols, but he's moving along well.
I know we haven't talked about the offensive line much, but Blake Fisher was out there in shorts and a t-shirt today. He looked to be in good spirits. Obviously nothing too physically wrong with him if it's only concussion protocol. It looks like he'll be out there sooner than later for sure. The rest of the offensive line, I think a very important note to make is that Kane Madden looks to be the starting right guard right now. I know last time we talked about him running with the second team. He moved up to join Zeke Correll as the guards on that offensive line. Josh Lugg still playing right tackle. Jarrett Patterson still playing center, and then left tackle with Blake Fisher out. It was a rotation between Tosh Baker and Michael Carmody.
Some great stuff there from Todd, Burlage, and Tyler Horka. How about a couple of guests at practice today for Notre Dame? You got Brian Kelly there talking to Mike Golick Sr. and Mike Golick Jr. Of course, both of those guys played for the Fighting Irish, and they were visitors at practice today. And a look here on the right side of your screen, you'll have Jack Coan throwing out to a running back, and then on the left side, Drew Pyne throwing a wide receiver tunnel screen. And how about that? You guys see number 24 there? That's our first look at Audric Estime, freshman running back who the Irish flipped from Michigan State late in the process. And then you'll see Drew Pyne throwing a tunnel screen out to Braden Lindsey with a tight end getting in a block there. Michael Mayer getting in some work. And then a couple more quarterbacks in. You have Drew Pyne sliding over. Now he's going to throw the swing pass. Tyler Buchner will then throw the tunnel screen to Lawrence Keys. And you guys see the running back on the right side of your screen, and that is Logan Diggs, another true freshman running back. Pyne throwing a pass out to him. And, of course, Lorenzo Styles, another true freshman, catching the ball there. And now we have Coan and Buchner. Buchner's going to throw a swing pass out to Kyron Williams, and then Jack Coan thrown out quickly to Lawrence Keys, who gets upfield. Here's a look at presumably your starting cornerbacks. Number 5 on the left side of the screen is Cam Hart. Number 6, a new number for Clarence Lewis, who wore number 26 last year. And man, does he look long and lean and very good in a Notre Dame uniform. See them catching. You see Clarence Lewis snagging a pass there. And here's a look at Marcus Freeman, the hot topic of the offseason. Notre Dame landing him over LSU, the most coveted defensive coordinator in the coaching carousel, big time get, and seems to really connect well with his players at Notre Dame. Couple of Notre Dame defensive backs here. We're going to look at Houston Griffith. man, if he steps up like Notre Dame fans are, and that coaching staff is hoping Notre Dame gets a huge boost. And Kyle Hamilton, he was out this spring. He is back as a full participant. And reports are that he has just looked excellent. Brian Kelly called him an eraser after today's practice in his press conference. Notre Dame fans know that I am the president of the Joe Alt fan club, and here is this monster, 6'8", over 300-pound offensive tackle, a true freshman. Looks like $100 million, I should say. Brian Kelly spoke highly of him as a surprise so far through 6 practices of fall camp. Joe Alt, I feel like, is a future NFL guy. And here's Jordan Patel. Wanted to show him again. He was at Notre Dame for that first practice. So many people have opined that what his status is going into fall camp due to whatever rumors are out there. But there, Jordan Patel watch continues. And he was a full participant and was working out with the second team defense today. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you watch the Brian Kelly press conference highlights also on our YouTube page and at blueandgold.com. Make sure to head to our website for all of the coverage from Notre Dame fall camp.